evening and welcome along to another episode of the Blues Brothers podcast, the alternative Rangers podcast. Danny Rule's Rangers ensured it was lambs to the slaughter as a 2-0 victory over Aberdeen propelled us above Celtic and to within 3 points of Hearts in the race for the title. As Peter Leven sat in the away dugout hot seat, he was closely watched by what could only be described as the Buffalo Bill version of sporting directors. Let's just hope he wasn't dancing cross-legged in front of his hotel mirror afterwards, shouting, "Would you?" On the pitch, Manny Fernandez proved he's got a head that does more damage than Dujon Sterling does to motors. And speaking of damage, a sparkling man-of-the-match performance from Connor Barron gave his old club some real food for thought. Fava beans and a nice Chianti to ensure the silence of the lambs. Joining me to discuss all that and more, my very good friend, Mr. Ross Clark. Ross, how are we, mate?
Tired, mate. I'm a tired boy this week. Just back to work, naps, after work naps, can't sleep at night, can't get up in the morning. Just in that in-between stage just killed me, mate. So, but no, looking forward to tonight's pod and then a busy weekend as well. Got obviously the live pod with four lads, CJ Novo and David Edgar on Friday, and then I've got an installation for a lodge on Saturday. So busy weekend coming up as well, mate. So no time to be tired. How are you? How are you recovering?
Still struggling a wee bit, mate. I can't walk the length of myself, in all honesty. But I'm struggling on, mate. Putting the beef on, mate, I'm going to end up like Big Connor for the Rabo if I keep continuing the way I'm, mate. But we'll need to make sure I get the Manjaro in by the time I've recovered. But, well, mate, let's no better place to start than last night. And whilst I normally want to pick bits out about games and stuff like that, I think the most important thing that we should come to right now is something that you were banging on about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, mate. The title of the show tonight is Do We Need a Six? I noticed the Rangers Review jumped on the bandwagon this morning in terms of a discussion point, mate. But the performance for Connor Barron last night, and what I would say, especially over the last 4 or 5 games, mate, I think 3 games ago, did he not cover 15k in the one game? And that's why he was rested. Against Celtic, his set pieces might not have been great, but his ball retrieving was excellent. And last night, I think he capped it off with a terrific all-round performance. Where do we stand with the boy? Is there a need for us to get a 6 in the January transfer window, or should we really build a team around this boy? Does he have sufficient quality to take us forward?
Well, my stance on that, I've been saying it. I've been battering on the beat of that. Mate, for me, Connor Barron is every bit as tenacious and every bit as good on the ball as Ryan Jack was. And Ryan Jack went through an invincible season with Rangers in the league. Ryan Jack took us to a European final by doing the dirty work and letting Kamara and Davis go and play, or Joe Aribo and Davis, or Kamara and Joe Aribo, or you get the point I'm making. He done the dirty work. He allowed Tav to go forward. He allowed Barisic to go forward. He sat in his wee pivot and he just covered both sides because he had the engine. So I think that Connor Barron isn't good enough going forward to be an 8 in a team that hold onto the ball. I want my 2 8s to be able to get box to box and be a goal threat, right? And to be fair, could you train it into Connor Barron? Probably. But I think you go and get an experienced head in beside Raskin and Diamande, and you've got 3 that can play in front of him, and you've also got Raskin who can fit in there if Barron, as you're seeing the now, is potentially injured. But somebody in that engine room who's just going to give you dig, tenacity, energy, win setting balls, press when he needs, bring other folk with him. Last night you seen him actually dragging Tavernier about, and you seen him dragging Raskin and stuff. His set piece delivery was excellent. My worry is, Davie, if you go and sign an out and out 6, then where does Connor Barron, who people say Jack Butland because he's the first name that rolls off the head, but for me, Connor Barron's been Rangers Player of the Year in the half season up until now. So I think if we go and sign a 6, where do you play him? Because if he plays in the 8 and you're expecting him to get forward and start creating goals and scoring goals, then I don't see him holding down a position there. I think that there's a definite slot in the team for him as the 6 and get 2 better box-to-box players in front of him.
I know, I agree with you. See the point that I just had up just before, Mr. Unmutual's point as well. See, in regards to this, we do this thing in this country where we almost have, see if they don't come through your youth academy and their name isn't Barry Ferguson, we talk down Scottish talent. And I think sometimes it takes players time to establish themselves. But see if you've got a manager that gives you belief in you. And I think you can see that almost connection between Danny Rule and Conor Barron. That's apparent. He's always talking to him in games. He's got his arm run about him after games. He talks him up in press conferences. When a manager's got that bit of belief in you, it gets that wee 10, 15% extra at you. Like what you said with Gerrard and maybe what he got out of Ryan Jack. And Ryan Jack probably played more games under Gerrard than he did for any other Rangers manager, because that's what it is. When a manager's got belief in you, it gives you a greater starting point. And I think that's what we're beginning to see with Conor Barron coming to the fore, is Danny Rule definitely sees something in him. And I think there's a place for him in the team. I think as well, see, when you look at the game against Celtic on Saturday, it probably suits him to line up in a flat 3 against the ball, because then we can really hunt them down. And you heard the manager speak about that in his pre-match presser last week, that Rangers will hunt at the weekend and you'll see it. And I think a game like last night, when you've got that sort of added spice to an Aberdeen fixture, and with it being Conor Barron's former club, I think that sort of propelled him into arguably his best performance in a Rangers shirt. Do you go along with that, Ross?
Certainly, it's up there. But I just honestly, you know yourself, for the minute we even when he signed his pre-contract with us, and it was they were trying to keep it kind of hush hush because he wasn't coming to the summer, and Aberdeen dropped him. And even at that point, we were probably on the rabble at that point, Davie, when folk were saying, "Oh, what are we going for?" And I said then. So I've been on the Barron bandwagon for a long time. So for me, he's put in good performances, but I think it's only now that the team's winning that folk are appreciating it. Whereas for me, even under Russell Martin, Conor Barron had come in and played well. Cameron was playing well at that point as well. So as a lot of the how would you say it? A lot of the credit's got to go to Danny Rule, but I think that Conor Barron's been an unsung, flying under the radar wee battle axe for us for probably the whole of this season. As I say, for me, he's the best player. He's been our most consistent best player this year. But since the minute he came in, I think he's done a real job for Rangers. And I think that people have been overlooking, whether it's because he's Scottish, because he wasn't a sexy signing for a foreign country or the Championship, that folk underestimate and kind of look past the fact that he is actually quite good at spreading the ball about. He's got a wee bit of composure and a decent first touch, and he can play his way out of trouble. See, because he's no putting in crosses, that's not his game. See, because he's not scoring goals, that's not his game. He's there to win the ball, to enable the turnovers, to then let your other players get forward. And I think that sometimes that side of the game, see when you play and you're playing at a decent level, that's the person you want in your team, because that's the one that enables the turnover that then lets you go and get chances. But he's also the player in the team who, if Tavernier gets caught up the park, if you've got him sitting as a 6, he's going to go across and cover. We've seen it with Ryan Jack. As I say, Ryan Jack wasn't a technically great football player, but he had heart, he had endeavour, and he had positional awareness, and he sensed danger. And I think Conor Barron's got all them traits in spades, Davie.
I think as well, what's underestimated about him is the fact that he can actually travel with the ball, Ross. He can run with the ball. He's very comfortable dribbling with the ball at his feet. And you saw that last night, maybe because he had an understanding of how Aberdeen would play, and he knew a couple of the players. He played with some of them in midfield, but he was very calm and composed. At times, took us up the pitch 10, 15 yards. I think, if I'm right, he either had 56 out of 57 or 57 out of 58 successful passes last night, an
Yeah.
accuracy of 98%, which is extraordinary. And something that I don't think he gets enough credit for, Ross, is he doesn't play side to side like a Lundstrom did. He plays forward. He plays forward. And there's not enough of that. I think there's the argument when Raskin's there, he almost doesn't even know himself what type of player he is. He wants to be a 6 because that's what gets him into the Belgian team, but he's actually better the higher up the pitch he plays, because he's better at actually winning the ball high up and taking opposition players on the closer to the penalty area, because he's comfortable at running with the ball and he's clever technically. So you're actually wanting Raskin to be higher up the pitch. So I think there's an argument there to say, right, if we're going along with him and Raskin, what is the right blend there that's missing? Because I think without the ball and games that you're expecting to suffer, like Parkhead away, then you chuck in Diamande. But see, if you're wanting to dominate games, mate, and be the ball dominant side and look to pepper the opposition, should our January window now be focusing on an 8? Somebody that's maybe looking to play the ball into pockets, down into channels, that killer pass that maybe looks to unlock the door. Is that the right blend maybe going forward now?
I think going back to that 3 where you've got Barron who does the jack job, you've got Raskin who does the kind of Kamara job, who finds wee pockets, quite tidy on the ball, sometimes a bit loose with it. And the difference is the Stephen Davis, the guy that wants to play passes into spaces and follow his run, the Scott Arfield, that experienced head that's been around the block and can see it and sees the whole game in front of him, plays with his head up, but has the ability to get about the park. Greatest Showman's is commented there. And listen, I've got a lot of respect for the Rangers review, Davie. You know, I watch it every morning, I interact with them. And I think Joshua Barry's potentially the best Rangers podcaster through the way he talks, the sense he talks and stuff. But I think that the club have made it really early that they're a number 6, an experienced 6. That was what Raphael was meant to be, and they've put that word out to fan media early doors. And I think that a lot of the talk from, as we've said before, Stevie Clifford and the boys in Four Lads have been talking about we need a 6. The Rangers review, we need a 6. It's all people that have got ties to the club who are being fed that that's what we're looking for. So as fans, they're getting excited about a new number 6, I would imagine. But for me, the worry is if you get a 6, where does Barron fit in? Because I think Barron's got so much to offer. He's 23 years of age and he's grown into the jersey. But you see, for me, and I said this about Ryan Jack at the time and it never came to fruition, Connor Barron could be a Rangers captain, sitting in that bit of the field, just doing the job he does, commanding games, winning tackles. It kind of reminds me of Kevin Thompson, where he's got that, he'll put his foot in and it gets the crowd up as well. Do you know what I mean? So listen, I don't endorse anybody kind of talking down to the other podcast, mate, because I think that everybody's got their own opinions. Everybody's got their own opinions, and people will be, maybe I'm talking crap, maybe they go, no, Barron's not good enough for me than R6, but for me, if you're being fed lines that that's the direction the club's going in, then naturally you get excited and you start saying, oh, well, we can get better than, or do you know what I'm talking about? I don't think it's a duff opinion, because I'm not saying that my opinion's right either. I'm just saying everybody, that's why there's so many Rangers podcasts, and that's why there's even people like me and you that are starting to our own wee corner of the Rangers podcast world, because there's so many different views, and to be honest, quite a lot of them they come for us.
Well, I mean, everybody's got their own ego at the end of the day, and I think that's fair comment. But obviously, what I think is sort of a pertinent point in regards to when you're speaking about Connor Barron and the midfield as a whole, Ross, is last night we started with the midfield that finished the game at the weekend, and I think that there's obviously slight tweaks that Danny Rule will make. Opposition obviously realised that we're going to have Mary the ball last night, so Sterling was dropped to get a rest, and then Tav come back in because we're going to have Mary the ball. So I think going forward, we will see subtle tweaks. But what I want to know is, in order to make that sort of ascension towards trying to be the team that tops the league and wins the big prize at the end of the season, what for us would be the ideal shape going forward then? Is it keeping Barron as the 6, bringing in this sort of hybrid 8, and almost having Raskin as the floating player? Does that make Rangers the strongest you feel between now and the end of the season?
I've always liked the way we played under Gerrard. We're at 4-3-3, tight, 1 sitting, 2 in front, 2. It's essentially a 4-1-2-1. 4-1-2-1, 1-2-3. Where you've got your sitter, who was Ryan Jack, and then you've got your Davis and Kamara in front of them. You would have your Chumiti right in the centre forward, and then you've got your 2 10s who don't really go wide. You focus all your play down the middle, and then you've got your overlapping wing backs. And I think if we can get Penrice in, he'll certainly offer that along with Magoma on the left. But the elephant in the room here is Rangers can't really do that because we don't have that right wing back now. Tavernier's not got the legs for it. Sterling, for me, isn't good enough in the final third to offer you what Tavernier offered you back then. So for me, that's the formation that I would play with. I think that's the kind of formation that Postecoglou played with quite a lot, and he had Maida who would go to the wing sometimes, but other ones would come in. I just think that in Scotland and the way Scottish teams play, having a decent core in the middle of the park with your kind of flair players dotted about is the way I would like to see it. And then you can always then drop back into your, for me, 4-2-3-1 should be the kind of most defensive we ever play, and have 2 sitters and the one just floating in front. I don't really like the 3-5-2 because I feel as if when you play it in Scottish football, because of the long balls, you end up your 2 wing backs can very quickly get pinned back, and it becomes essentially more or less a flat 5. And you're 2, and then you've got 7 players sitting in front of Jack Butland.
I think you make an interesting point there in regards to defensively, and I want to sort of transition that with the point about Manny Fernandez. I think he's very lethal in opposition's box. Sometimes I think he's got that sort of lackadaisicalness in him that he looks almost far too casual on the ball at times, Ross. I don't know if you think he's value for money in the sense that he's worth what we've paid for him, but does he prevent us going into the market for getting a centre half? Can we get by with him being the partner with John Suter between now and the end of the season? My worry is defensively, I think where we have been exposed still is we're very susceptible to the ball over the top, and we're very susceptible to the ball in behind in the channel between him and Magoma. The gaps and the spaces, the distances are far too big there. And if the Aberdeen had sort of better players last night, or maybe even Kevin Nisbet was a bit more ruthless last night instead of trying to find the boy but take the opportunity on himself, we could have been punished last night, but luckily we weren't. Where do you stand on Fernandez? Are you pro Fernandez? Does he continue to get a run in the team, mate?
I think so. I actually quite like him. Apologies, by the way, Davie. I thought I'd hit myself on mute when I was trying to get the dog out there. He was tap dancing along the laminate floor, and it does everybody's head in. There's nothing worse. Fernandez, for me, stays in the team because I think he offers you what we spoke about this maybe 2 weeks ago, where we said it's a Russian roulette with him, because for every goal he scores, he'll maybe sell you 2 chances and then send up to somebody else to cover from it, but it's the game of chance. I think he'll mature and grow as a Rangers player. I think he'll get better, but I do think that we potentially need to go into the market, because last week you were looking at Suter, Fernandez, Sterling, Enciara and Giga coming back. So there's Sterling now an injury out already with a hamstring for the weekend. Cornelius, what's he going to come back like? Is he going to come back? Is he going to break down again? Enciala looks so far out the picture, there's more chance of me or you getting a run of games for Rangers. So really, you've got Fernandes and you've got Suter, and Suter's not exactly the most hardy, always fit, play 60 games a season. So I think we do need cover in there. I think we got a wee bit excited when Sterling came back in that this was going to finally be the chance where he gets a run of games, but his minutes have been managed. He only came on the other night for 15 minutes, and that's him injured again. So I think we need somebody else in there, even as a rotation option, especially going into the second half of the season where the pressure ramps up and the effort ramps up, and you've got some tricky away ties later on in the season. You don't want to be going there with just 2 or 1 centre half for a makeshift backline.
So, do you think that him and Suter complement each other well, mate? I must say, other than the one mistake last week, who was the last home game against before Celtic? Can't remember. Was it St Mirren? We won 2-1. That was John Suter's first game back. Other than the one mistake that he made in that game, I think he's been excellent against Celtic, and I think he was excellent last night again, mate. So I don't know if maybe shifting that wee bit of timber that it looks as if he shifted has actually benefited him, and maybe the sports science department have done the right thing, no rushing him back. Is it imperative, mate, that you think he signs a new deal? And can I ask you, do you believe he will sign a new deal?
I think he'll be offered a new deal, but it depends who else is offering him. He's free to talk to other clubs now, isn't he? So there's every chance that his agent's in his ear the now, telling him there's other offers, clubs are interested. So it's another example of us. We really need to start tying these players down or get them to make a decision, and that way we can start looking to replace them, Davie. We've done it with Goldson, we're now doing it with Suter, whereby you've got your first choice, most solid centre half, and Goldson obviously ended up signing his. Sure, they announced that he was leaving, and then at the boatmate wrote, "Aye, but he's not really. He signed a new deal, if you remember right, when his contract ran done." So, I think he'll be offered, but I don't know that a team maybe in the English Championship won't offer him a deal that's financially worth more with a good signing on fee, because they're not paying a transfer fee for him. And then it's a case of how much do you want to match the wages that are being offered elsewhere? Do you know what I mean?
I know, absolutely get that. How would you describe the partnership of the two? Do they complement each other? What type of defender is Soapy versus what type of defender is Fernandes?
The two of them are erratic, I'll give you that. Mate, I actually think that the two of them shouldn't be a good match, because I think that the two of them are very similar. They want to do the same. You usually get in a centre half pair and a decent, you've maybe got one who's a big brute who'll go and win everything, and you've got the other one that'll drop off. Whereas with they two, they're both dominant in the air in their side, which is good, because they both kind of patrol their own side. The two of them are good with the ball. The two of them can break the press. John Suter, I love nothing more than when John Suter's got the ball, a striker presses, and he just does that wee nudge past him and then strolls into midfield. I think that's really effective. The two of them are offering you long balls. The two of them will offer you real height at set pieces. So for me, that they're a centre back pairing that shouldn't work, but it is. The only thing being that they're a wee bit erratic at times, which you're going to get when you've got two centre halves that want to be ball playing centre halves, rather than, as I say, one kind of ball playing and one that's just a big brute that's there just to go and throw his head at everything that comes near.
I'll just bring it up, mate, because Mark's been making a few comments about it. Would Scott McKenna complement John Suter in terms of a partnership if he was available and we were looking at him?
Well, that's the point I'm making with Fernandes, mate. I think John Suter's one of the defenders who who will just do his own job and leave the other centre half to do their own job, and kind of never the two shall meet. I think McKenna was an interesting opportunity in the summer when he was a free agent, but I don't even know how much McKenna would cost. But the likes of McKenna, I'm taking it he would be nation trained.
Aye, mate, aye. He would, mate. Come through Aberdeen, mate, aye.
So that adds to your kind of homegrown quota and stuff like that. But he's an option. But I think the boy Fernandez is similar to Chamiti at the other end. He's now finding his confidence. He's had a run of games. He looks a goal threat. And for what he's offering you, I still think that the amount of chances he gives away is kind of weighed up by the amount that he's offering you at the other end of the park, and by that beating the press and involving other people in the game.
So I don't like to touch on controversy too much, mate, but obviously newspapers continuing to break stories, but if you actually read the facts in the article, there's nothing that states what Dujon Sterling's alleged offence is. It's just rumours and sources. But where do you stand on, obviously, the fact that the incident happened? I think too much was made on social media, and a lot of folk like to jump on the bandwagon and attack. I think we're a club that are attacked by almost every source on Scottish football, and I think we don't need to bring it in from within our own camp. We look after our own, we always have, and we always should. I firmly believe that. So, Dujon Sterling, mate, does he deserve a wee bit of slack? Regardless of the offence, it's up to the club to punish him. Because if he's fit and available, or when he's fit and available, he's surely an asset to this team.
When he's fit and available, he plays. I don't think that misbehaving outside a school should mean you get detention. So, do you know what I'm talking about?
100%, mate. We've all done it.
The issue for me with the Dujon Sterling thing is mere professional recovery, etc., etc. We've beat Celtic. Go out and have a few drinks. They go out and have a few drinks whether they lose to Motherwell, win against Celtic. So I don't get the kind of backlash he's getting that, oh, it was only one game and you shouldn't be going out. The guys they're well paid young men, so they're going to go out and win, lose or draw, because unfortunately, they don't care about it as much as us. They're not stomping about their house for 3 or 4 days when they get beat. But where it's going to come back to bite him in the arse, Davie, for me, is he played the game against Celtic, played really well, put in a shift. Just go. If you're going to be having a drink, don't take your car. Now, we don't know if he has been drinking. That's not confirmed, as you say, the newspaper report the night thingy. But for me, it's why are you still out driving about, no matter what condition you're in, at 1:25 in the morning when you've got a game again on Tuesday night? You should be making best use of recovery. Remember when Jermaine Defoe used to play with us, and he would play a game and then he would be on Instagram later that night with an Instagram story where he all lying up on the couch with the inflatable recovery suit leg things on. That's what the difference, the professionalism. And then, as I say, he's played 15 minutes of football and broke down, potentially injured again after that. So for me, recovery is the most important thing for a professional athlete, especially one who's been judged with his injuries outweigh the good he's done for the club now. And I really hoped, I've said it on here, that he would get 6 month continuous run, maybe dropping him in and out for weird games to make that right back position his own. And then something like that happens, and then the next game he pulls up with a hammy, and you're like, it's all about recovery for me. So listen, if you misbehave outside of school, you shouldn't get detention in school, and that's what I've always said. You'll be punished by your parents. In this case, he'll be punished by the club, I would imagine, for bringing the club's name into a bit of trouble. But he'll not be the first player, he'll not be the last player to crash a car. But for me, it's the time that the event happened that for me, maybe be back in your bed when you've got a game a couple of days later.
No, and I think we'll park that one there, mate. Now, what I wanted to bring up, and it's maybe an interesting point because it's players on the periphery, and there's two that I want to talk about in particular, and maybe the recent appointment of Neil McCann and Billy Dodds at Kilmarnock might be a sense of watch this space and they sort of favour for the old boys sort of thing. But there's too many media outlets, fan media running with this in regards to Finlay Curtis, and obviously Lyle Cameron, that the club want them to go out on loan, mate. One, does that surprise you? And two, is it the right thing currently for both?
So I'd actually seen Dukes from Four Lads had tweeted last night about that. Keep your eye out, that could be a potential for Curtis and that to go there. And I had tweeted back, it sounds great in principle, but do we want a young guy at 18 and do we want somebody who's been ravaged by injury, gone and training and playing on astrograss 5 days a week? Is that going to be beneficial to Cameron and recovering from injury? Is it going to be good for the development of Curtis, who's an 18-year-old boy who's still growing and his body will be adapting to the rigours of football? So I think Kilmarnock are a club, and McCann and Dodds are obviously coaches who know Curtis, having worked with him last year. And in principle, it sounds great. The issue for me with that Kilmarnock link is the surface. And the kind of rigours that would have on their body when you're used to training at Auchenhowie on the best of the best grass pitch, which is an exact replica of Ibrox, to then go and start training on potentially the worst plastic pitch. That to me is where it falls down. Cameron at this point is so far out the picture that, again, I think alone he's got to go on loan because he's more or less missed 4 months of football now, and he's being consistently overlooked. Last night you've got Kieran Dow and Tello Asgard and Rabbi Matondo on the bench ahead of him. So I don't see the point in him hanging about. I'd rather he went and played football. Finlay Curtis is one that will always irk me a wee bit because I think he's got so much to offer us, even coming on in the last 10 minutes of games, if that's all it is. But if Danny Rule thinks that there's more to be gained by going and playing consistent football, then fair enough. What I would like to see is then with these two and anybody else that we put out on loan is start using the loan system in Scotland. Send people to other teams and let them go and try and help to take points off of Hearts and take points off of Celtic and take points off of our clubs. And then when we play against them, they're weakened because they can't play against us. I think that's a system that we should be using. Lyle Cameron goes to a Hibs or an Aberdeen or something like that to get games. There's every chance he could potentially score goals against our competitors as well. So there's that whole side there.
That's an interesting point you make, because I always remember Celtic done that with Ryan Christie at Aberdeen, and then look at the money that they got for the boy. He's in playing week in, almost week out for Bournemouth in the Premier League, mate.
Done it with Welsh at Aberdeen. They're doing it with, who's the other one that's on loan now? To Motherwell, who's playing every week.
Welsh, Stephen Welsh,
so Scales Aberdeen.
Liam Scales,
Aberdeen, yep. So it's something that they've done as well. I just think it's a no-brainer. Get them used to the physicality of the league, weaken your opposition. To me, that's
see, Finlay Curtis, mate, what do you think he needs to do? Because I look at him, I'm sure I've said this on here, it looks like he needs to go on a red meat diet, a carnivore diet, and sort of bulk up in the gym. Because I think it was David Edgar that said it on Heart and Hand earlier on in the season after the goal against St Mirren that he scored at New St Mirren Park. He's cultured when he gets a finish on him. You fancy his chances one-on-one. The problem I think he's got is he looks like a boy playing against men the new,
Mhm.
and I think he does need to sort of bulk up that physicality. There's definitely talent there, but surely there's got to be coaches and sports science working on that, and maybe even take a step down to the championship for 6 months of the season. And I mean, it done Charlie Adam no wrong when he was trying to make his way in his Rangers career, mate. So is that an option?
Mate, potentially. If you look at Finlay Curtis and Mikey Moore, for being the same age, Mikey Moore looks older and more developed than Finlay Curtis. But mate, my worry once you start dropping down the leagues is you're then you've got a target on your back. I think you've seen it, although he went right down the leagues. You've seen it with Alex Lowry. You go down there, you're one of the better players, you're a young guy, and you end up getting poleaxed and put out the game for months. So the championship is a totally different style of football as well to the league we're playing in. So I don't see how much it's going to offer them, but you'll probably find that Rangers players in the past have went down there and done well. So who am I to say it would work or it wouldn't? But for me, the Alex Lowry, and I get that was it was a Highland League he went to. Was it Highland League? Was it like
Lowland League? Aye.
Yeah, and he ended up taking a bad one. And I just think once you go championship, the standard of the pitches isn't as good. The fan experience round about, getting them used to playing in front of big crowds and stuff, it maybe isn't as useful. So I would be open to them going, mate, but my preference, would, as I say, would be to get them to potentially even a lower end SPFL side.
So, mate, the news is obviously broke in the last wee hour and a bit in regards to who we're looking at for the CEO job. And shock horror, the old board's prime candidate, Jim Gillespie for St Mirren, is back in. And you know, when the Rangers Review are running with it as their top story, that it has been leaked to them. So what do you make of that, considering it was an appointment that was offered to him? He went public and decided to say that he rejected it. There's obviously reasons for it at that time, and potentially, to be fair to Jim Gillespie, the reasons could be there was that much toxicity towards John Bennett and Douglas Park at that particular time that whoever was coming in was going to be sort of het for the flack. And obviously, when it was Patrick Stewart, it never really married well. So is the fact that Patrick Stewart's been there and whoever comes in now will be seen as a positive?
The guy's obviously qualified for a job. St Mirren are a well-run team who are punch above their weight. I think they did no bad commercially and stuff as well.
And have won a trophy.
I heard a bit earlier on by somebody that he actually does a lot of work with. He's got a charity he does a lot of work with. Kibble.
Is it Kibble? Aye, mate. Aye.
And seemingly he was right in the middle of a project with that the last time he was offered the Rangers job and didn't want to commit to it. So is there potential that's where why he's no took it, because he's been doing more important stuff in his view off the park and away from football to take on such a big role at such a big time. So that was the rumour on Twitter. So
I'll add this to you as well. See if he does come in, right? His sporting director is who? Keith Lasley. As far as I'm led to believe, Keith Lasley is a Rangers man. Would that be just putting two and two together and making five, mate? Would the CEO bring his current sporting director of the current club he's at with him?
I'd like to think that we would go for somebody that's got a bit more experience in the role, but is there a chance? Does it put Keith Lasley in the pot? Does it put Keith Lasley in the pot? Of course it would, if you've done a good job for a director. And Andrew Kavanagh's already told us that he actively promotes a wee bit of nepotism and a wee bit of, if you've worked with somebody and you think they'd be good, or if you know somebody and you think they'd be good, let us know and they'll go to kind of top of the queue for interviews and whatever. So it would be a good move for him to give him a chance. I mean, I'm still pining a wee bit for for Lee McCulloch that's really died down on that talk of him.
Aye, it has, mate. It has. Aye.
I think, as you say, some of the bigger hitter podcasts had kind of jumped on that, and I went, oh, I wonder if they've had word that that's a goer, because it was taking up a bit of airtime on some of the pods, and it seems to have really just went quiet again. But I dare say that if you've not appointed your new CEO yet, you're not going to appoint your sporting director. So is it one that's kind of bubbling away in the background and Kavanagh's maybe spoke to him? I don't know. I'd like to think so, mate. I think you can't get enough people like Jig McCulloch running about the club in any capacity, never mind one at which he's got real life university degrees and qualifications in sporting directorship, plus he's had a real big role in some of the great work that Brighton have done in the transfer market. To bring him home, he's got a lot of love for the club, a passion for it, knows the standards. That would be my first choice based on the names I've heard for that, mate.
It's an interesting one, mate. Do you think, though, and I'll put this to you because I always go back to that word that Philip Clement used in press conferences right for day one, synergy, right? And we have lacked that from the fan base towards the board in any capacity. Probably, going back to maybe when Dave King brought in Steven Gerrard is the last real time that everybody was on the same page. So what do we think, mate, in terms of if a guy has turned it down for whatever reason before, will that almost be a stick to beat him with every time that something goes wrong now? Is he almost sort of boxing from day one to try and make a name for himself in the position?
I don't know, mate. If there's any truth in that Twitter rumour that he was away doing charitable things and trying to build up something away from football, then you just come out and say that, don't you? I don't think so. I don't think. Well, Steven Gerrard had the manager's job and walked away from his, mate. Had it and walked away from his, and I still pined for him back at right up until Danny Rule turned his corner. So I don't say that we're kind of, oh, you knocked us back before, you're not coming back. But Kenny Miller left us, signed for them, and then came back, and all he had to do was a couple of good performances, and everyone always forgiven. So I don't think the Rangers supporter are in any place to know where we're going to cut our nose off to spite our face with any kind of hires. What I would say is I feel as if that synergy, there's grumblings of, I'm not saying anger towards Kavanagh, but there's a wee bit of trepidation now, round about, well, now a week into the transfer window. There you go, three of our starters for the other day are now potentially missing the Pittodrie game, and we've not got anybody in. So I feel as if the noise in the background is starting to turn up just a wee bit, where folk are now saying, why are we not prepared? Why have Hearts went and signed a couple of players? Why are Celtic signing a couple of players? But nothing's coming close. Mr. Mutual says it. We're now potentially, I hoped we would have had 2 or 3 in by now. And there you're going to lose 3 of your starting 11 for the Old Firm game. And who have we got to replace them? You're back to bringing in, you're going to have a bench where the likes of your Camerons and that are going to be back on the bench now, despite Danny Rowe essentially saying they're not good enough, they're not training hard enough. But we need to bring them in because we've not went and done our business. So I would have liked to have seen us as a club being more proactive and going and showing, and we spoke about this as well, going and showing that we've got an appetite for the fight and we want to win the league, and we've got all our shit in a pile. Because again, are we penny pinching? Are we part of a chain of succession for players? There's names starting to come out the day, but I just feel as if Kavanagh, if stuff doesn't happen, if you go and drop points at Aberdeen at the weekend after not making a signing, does then that notch up a wee bit? So there's hunters going on at the club, Davie. It all seems to be moving in the right direction, but I just hope that it will continue to go in that good synergy, as you say. We're telling a lovely story and it's all great. Hopefully it's got a happy ending.
not to put a dampener on proceedings, right? But I want to go back to last night. There is a wee wanker that we've no spoke about, and his name is Nick Walsh. I thought his performance last night, mate, was absolutely shocking, disgusting. And I don't know, I can't speak or make allegations on this podcast, right? But there is definitely something there between him and Diamandi. Anytime Diamandi is filled in these games, it's play on. Now, I think boy Devlin was already on a booking. He had no intention of playing the ball, mate. He runs into him and he makes the challenge sort of somewhere between his elbow and his shoulder, and he barges him. He obstructs him from getting the ball, running onto it towards goal. Nick Walsh, play on. Oh, James McFadden, the bankrupt James McFadden, who came to shame in the papers the day, but somehow was bankrupt when he's on the telly last night saying, oh, it's no a foul. Play on, play on, play on. There's nothing in that, Crocker. No, it is a foul, and it was a foul. And Diamandi is victimised, and he's ref to such a different standard for Nick Walsh, and nobody will pick up on it. He was sent off against nothing for Dundee United against Tannadice. Don Robertson, who speaks in that wee helium balloon voice on VAR. Oh, Nick, you better get back and see. Right. Honestly, he's going like that. Watch it again. It's no a red card. The contact is negligible. Nick Walsh watches it, and what does he say? No, I see a hand been thrown to the face. It's a red card. There's just too much of a collective pattern in Nick Walsh targeting Diamandi that I think we need to shed a light on it, speak about it. And the club, I think, needs to almost be robust in bringing these things up. If we're going to speak about them when we get beat, we mention them when we win also, because it's important. Willie Collum does his wee show every now and again, and they pick selective clips and all the rest of it. But I think that, you know, there's far more to be said that Nick Walsh referees Diamandi and Rangers to a different standard to anybody else that he does.
I just don't think he's a good referee, mate. I just don't think he's a good ref. Last night,
I went into your rant here, mate.
you went half on man it, mate. I never seen it coming either. I never even seen it coming. But last night, two decisions, mate, that baffled me. The blonde-haired centre half for Aberdeen, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name.
The number 29, mate. Aye.
Hit folk all night, and then he should have been booked. And then at the end up, he pulls somebody back. Worse than Asgard did in the Old Firm game. And the commentators are going, oh, he's going to get booked for that now. And he doesn't. He still never get booked. So for me, again, centre half, Chermiti can then go and play on him. But there seems to be a reluctance to book players, but it feels as if every time a Rangers player coughs or farts around where he gets booked. Where, as well, can you imagine if Chermiti, Diamandi, Raskin, Morelos when he was here, Ryan Kent, if they had missed a chance, ran off the park and smashed a ball off a wee cone right into this, did they get sent off? Sent off? We actually go, I'm trying to think who it was. Remember we got a player sent off for celebrating a goal one time in the centre circle. They thought they were making a gain the fingers to their fans or something. Remember that? Was it that long ago?
Was it no Andy Halliday at Morton away when we were in the championship, mate? Aye.
Potentially. So that's what I'm saying. The standard of refereeing's guff, and I hate to come on and sound as if you're like, oh, they've got. But as you say, there was a big thing made of the Dio incident with Nick Walsh, and I think that he has got a wee bit of that. We'll call it unconscious bias against Diamandi, that he maybe doesn't know he's doing it, but he does. Referees him at a different standard. But listen, we've had that. I actually think all refs referee Diamandi at a different standard, because the narrative's been put out there by the press that he dives into tackles and he's always in late, and this we had the same with Morelos. When Morelos was here, he's always kicking out. Not heard it once about Maeda, who literally kicks people off the park. So that's then when you start to question. But in answer to your question, and I'll answer it the same way I always do, I think that every team has got these wee quirks with referees, because I just think the referees are not very good, to be honest.
And that is a fair point. So I want to sort of bring it back to the coaching team before we talk to Sunday's game. On the last show, we praised the manager, and we said in the show before that if we did win on Saturday, that's the first thing that we did, and I think we were right to do that. But what I found interesting in his post-match presser yesterday was that he mentioned Scott Fry in particular, and he just said that he's not just been a good coach in terms of improving things for the set-piece point of view, which is what he's primarily brought in for, but he says he's a great guy and he's having a great influence on the players. He's a very credible coach. And I think when a manager speaks to you in that high regard, when you've been in such a short space of time, that must bode well going forward. And the proof in the pudding is last night, 2 goals for 2 set piece, and we look really deadly now, mate. Whereas before this guy come in, we were absolutely honking at them.
Somebody asked a question early on, didn't they? Is that why Cameron and Curtis are no being preferred? Because they don't have that physical presence? Because at the moment, you look at the opposition box, Raskin, who is, for whatever reason, 5'7", but when he jumps, he's 7'5". You've got Asgard usually in there. Diamandi's no a wee guy, although he's slight, he's tall. Fernandez, Suter. So we are building a team who can really make opposition players think about it when it comes to your set pieces. It's not just all about being big and physical on the ball and being able to motor up and down the park. When it comes to the kind of fine lines when you're struggling or you're in a game and maybe the ball's bouncing about, it's like a hot toddy, a free kick can make all the difference, and you're kind of seeing that with us now. I wouldn't say we've been outstanding. I'd say we're riding our luck at times, but the amount of chance creation we're getting through our set pieces makes a difference. So the guy Scott Fry's come in, he's earned his crust well, and again I think it reflects back on Danny Rule and his ability to get people on side. That's a couple of times now he's really spoke up about the boy Fry. And listen, the eye test tells me that the guy's doing a good job. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about how maybe now he's got his feet under the table and he's had a month taking to analyse, because Tavernier's on the park last night. Barron's taking the corners, McGoma's taking corners, Tav's and our giving his input. But when it came to the crunch, Barron was his main taker. So the boy Scott Fry obviously maybe by this point is looking at what type of set piece he wants to use, and whether it's Tav's big floaty or Barron kind of more direct. He seems to kick the ball with a bit less trajectory than Tavernier, who if he doesn't hit the front man, it's right over and in towards the back. So all the wee kind of player quirks and stuff like that as well, I think are now coming into play. And I think
I never even considered that. It's an interesting point, because whilst Barron is a physical player and gets stuck in terms of physicality, if he's in the opposition box, he's probably no offering as much as what a Tav or a Sterling is for right back position. So actually by maybe working with him on the set pieces, you're actually adding maybe a threat in terms of against the opposition in their box by maybe keeping a Tav or a Sterling in there as opposed to Barron. It's an interesting point you make, mate. One I've not heard before, mate, but no, because I'm kind of on board with it.
Yeah, Barron's never in the box anyway, mate. Barron's your kind of sitter, isn't he? He's playing that if the ball breaks, he's going to be first there to mop it up. So it allows you to get a Tav or a Sterling into the box, definitely. I think the guy's been really refreshing. I think we didn't really look that dangerous for set pieces, but every time we had one against us, we looked as if we could concede. So he's there in the game of football's fine margins, mate, and I feel as if he is allowing us to up the chances of scoring, and potentially you'd need to see stats, but maybe tweaking downwards the amount of chances we're giving away as well by having a better setup.
So, mate, we played Aberdeen last night. I think whilst they maybe looked a bit of a threat on the break with the ball over the top, they didn't really threaten Jack Butland much at all in regards to how even Celtic or St Mirren did. So we us going up to Pittodrie on Sunday, 4:30 kickoff. It is always a battle there, regardless of how good the Aberdeen team is, how good or bad we are. It is always a battle. I don't think, if I remember right, I think I saw on Twitter the day, we've not actually won there since 2021. Is that correct? We've not won at Pittodrie since 2021, which is a shocking record. So they are by default are probably most consistent, or that is our most consistent bogey ground, shall I say. So I get that we've got nothing to fear, but do you think the manager, allied with how his mentality is and the way he speaks about his coaching staff and his players, will attack this game in the right manner for Sunday? And should we look to have what I think good Rangers teams have about them? The mantra that no going to Pittodrie, it'll be difficult, but actually the mantra like, we're going up to Aberdeen on Sunday and we're going to beat them comfortably.
A lot of it will ride on. There's not going to be much football played, is there? It's been snowing up there for about a week. So if the game's on, the park's going to be a bog. So for me, that works two ways for us. We are susceptible to the ball of the tap or the ball through, which they're not going to be able to play if the grass is all cut up and it's minging. And on the other side, when it comes to that battle in the middle of the park, we're now potentially looking at no having Barron, no having Sterling, no having a ball carrier and Moore through injury. And that was always the thing with the squad, mate. You're now going to be looking at Raskin, Diamande and potentially Asgard or somebody like that as one of your midfield three battlers if Barron doesn't make it. So I think...
See, before I elaborate on that, see the point you make about Asgard, mate. Did he show last night that he has no battling qualities?
Mate, I think he's just a technical player. He's quite good in tight spaces, but he's just lackadaisical. Is that the word? He just kind of saunters. And I've said before on here, I don't know whether it's maybe just his mannerisms. Maybe he is grafting. Maybe it's just the mannerisms. He's got that kind of Adebayor type stance where he always looks as if he's at a half pace. But I wouldn't. If I'm going into the trenches in a game, I'm not sure he's the one I want leading the squadron in. If you know what I mean, I don't know if he's going to roll the sleeves up and really get every 50-50. By the way, Gassama doesn't strike me as that kind of player either. Too often for me, when there's a 60-40 in his favour, he just dips a wee toe in the bathwater and defenders come through him and clear it, and it's turnovers. So it's a very particular game, and I think a lot of it, mate, will depend on the conditions up there and what the park and stuff's like. I think could really decide on the way Danny Rule decides to approach it.
So, mate, just before we go, I'll ask you, how do you see it going on Sunday, mate? You expecting us to win, but do you think we will win? Are we even if the three players that you mentioned didn't make it, have we still got more than enough to know to beat them in the current form that they're in?
I think so. I fancy.
And what did you make of the sporting director being in a side Peter leaving, mate?
Been that. Mate, this is a trend in football. You've seen it quite a few owners and all that wanting to get involved. I know you're paying a guy to look after the squad, mate. Fuck off, you're not the star of the show. I said in a group chat last night, I thought it was that Austin McPhee that had turned up, man, looking for a fixer. So that's what it looked like, wasn't it? Austin McPhee. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you as the sporting director, when he's not stealing penguins, he should be sitting in the stand. He's not sitting in the stand. He's got to go down and get involved. So see if you're the caretaker manager, you would just have went like that last night, wouldn't you? Right, I see this, nah, just leave it. If I'm not trusted to do the job you've entrusted me with, then you go and get a suit on, or you go and get a trackie on, and you come down and do it then, if you think you can do better.
No, I think that's a fair point to leave it. So, give a wee prediction for Sunday, mate. How do you see it going? What's the score going to be?
I'll go on off 2-0 Rangers.
2-0 Rangers. I'll go 5-0 Rangers, mate. Honestly, I think we're due pumping somebody, mate. So let it be them, mate. A pleasure with your company this evening, as it always is. I hope you have a great weekend, mate, and enjoy yourself. I hope everybody in the comments, if you are going to that thing on Friday night with David Edgar, Stevie Clifford, and CG Novo, hope you all have a fantastic time, folks. And it just leaves me to say the normal. It's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Good night.